Hello there, Sue.
Hello, Sarah.
How are you?
How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. I'm ready to do this.
Awesome. Well, let's get into the video questions. Number one, should I book a videographer?
Yeah, everyone's completely different when it comes to video, Sarah. There's some people that can't imagine having their wedding without a videographer, and there's a lot of people that go, no, 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 I do not want to be captured on video, because at least with photography, they can sort of get me my best angles and do a little bit of work and make sure, I don't have the double chin or I can Photoshop it out kind of thing.
Hmm.
So video is very different for everybody. There is some people that simply say, I'm really happy for one of my guests just to use their phone and to video it for me. But there's something so beautiful about professional videography. And years ago, I don't know, maybe back even years ago when you got married, Sarah, the thing with video was you would get a VHS tape. Do you remember them, VHS tapes?
Oh, yes, I can remember beta tapes. There you go. Good old Betamax.
Oh, you must be older than me. I can't remember them, but that's my story. I'm sticking to it. All right,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
that. So you would get a VHS tape with maybe 2 or 3 hours. I don't know if you remember years ago, people would say, come over and see the wedding video. And you'd be like, oh, Lord, I can't watch 2 or 3 hours of it. Whereas these days, it's usually condensed down into what's called a show reel. And that might
Yes.
go for anything from 5 to 10 minutes, where all the most amazing snippets of the day are taken. And then it's beautifully edited into what's called a show reel. And it will have some dialogue over the top, maybe from your vows or speeches. And it will also have music, usually of your choice, that you pick it over it. So it's something that you can have on your phone. You can say to someone, if you've got a few minutes, have a look at my wedding day. And I believe you watch that an awful lot more than what you do with 3 hours on a VHS tape. So it's very personal. You also may really want to have video. Maybe it's not in your budget. I think if you have got the budget for it, it's a beautiful thing, because to watch an actual video of something and to watch still images is completely different. What's your thoughts on that, Sarah? Did you have a videographer when you got married?
I did, and I was so grateful that I did have it because I didn't get my wedding photos, as we know. So I was able to use that then to screenshot some photos. So we did have some memories from the day. That was literally a 2 week before the wedding decision. And I'm so, so glad that I did. And again, I was married 16, 17 years ago. And I don't think that I had the little snippet. I think it is the full day, the ceremony, the reception, that type of thing. I really can't remember because I haven't watched it in years, to be honest. But like you said, I think it's each to his own. But for me, I'm really pleased that I did end up booking it.
Well, that's interesting. You actually said that you only booked it 2 weeks before your wedding. What drove you to doing that so close to your wedding?
I think it was just the fact that we had the budget for it at the time. I got married in winter and I didn't consider video beforehand, to be honest with you. And I think it was my mother who actually said, are you getting it videoed? And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. We had some budget left. And I got a good deal because it was a winter wedding and it was also a Sunday wedding. And back then, Sunday weddings were not popular. So hence why I got a good deal for a Sunday and a winter wedding. And I'm just so pleased that I did.
Yeah, so you fall into that category of you were a bride that actually would have loved to have had video, but you didn't think you could afford it until closer to the day. Wouldn't it be nice if
Yeah.
you just had a 4 or 5 minute show reel on your phone that you could just still watch whenever you wanted? Like, you're never going to watch that VHS, are you?
No, it's actually on disc,
Oh,
I think.
it's on a
I think it's on, yeah,
DVD.
it's
Oh,
on
Lord.
DVD. I know, what can I say? I was very special. I got a good videographer. He was
Yeah,
doing DVD back then. So, yeah, but the
yeah.
cameras, I still remember they had the big, massive, bulky cameras, and oh, it was just next level stuff. I wasn't expecting all that. And obviously that was before I was in the wedding industry. So, now you see the
Yeah.
videographers with these tiny little cameras and It's amazing. It's amazing what they can do.
It's It's brilliant, isn't it? Because they're not so in your face. When
Yeah,
there's this huge big crew there, it's like they're almost taking over the wedding. But with the
exactly.
smaller cameras with video these days, and often just one videographer can cope with it, with one camera on a tripod for just your static stuff, and then that videographer might be roaming around with a second one to capture the sort of the Blair Witch Project information, as I like to call it. Do you remember the Blair Witch Project?
I did. Do you know I have not watched that movie? I
Oh,
remember the hype, but it's like,
I've not
oh,
watched it.
yeah. No, I don't
It
think I
scared
could.
me too much. But I remember the premise of it was, you remember, like, it
Yes,
was like they were filming and everything was jumping around. Well, it's not like that, but,
really.
it gives you just the more natural part of it alongside just the wide sort of still static shots.
Absolutely.
So, yes, if you really want a videographer, you've got to put it up there in your priorities in the beginning, in your budget to go, this is a deal breaker. We are going to afford a videographer no matter what. So, yeah, it's good to be clear about what you want, isn't it?
Oh, totally, totally. And I think that's gonna bring me on to the next question. How can I tell if a videographer is experienced enough?
Yeah, I think it's much the same as when we talked about photography, which
Yeah.
we talked about in, I don't know how many, did that take 2 podcasts, 3? I
Oh,
can't even,
I
it
think it
was
was
a
4
lot of content.
podcasts. Yeah, it was a
Oh,
lot.
4, okay. So quite a lot of content.
Mm,
You can refer back to that for a lot of sort of stuff with video. Same thing is, I really believe a professional person should have a well maintained website
mhm,
that should have current information, it should have testimonials, and it should have vision from not just one or two weddings, but like loads of weddings. And that's the way you can tell someone that's got experience is they've done a lot of weddings. Have they got a Facebook presence? Have they got a Instagram presence? Is there like, 20 or 30 different reviews from
mhm.
people? And just sometimes good old fashioned gut feeling or intuition can often tell you, oh, I've got it down between two videographers. I've got a good feeling about this one. So you just need to do a little bit of research, homework, and then maybe go on to Facebook, maybe go on to a wedding chat group and say, hey guys, thinking about using this videographer. Has anyone had experience that they can tell me about?
Mm.
So any way that you can get information from a couple that has used the services is gold.
And that's a really good point. I never thought of Facebook groups. So, yeah, that's a really good one. I like that.
There's loads of them, Sarah. There's loads of private chats that you can just join of just basically just brides all on there talking about stuff.
Yes.
Uh, can be helpful, can also be a little confusing sometimes because everyone's throwing their two bits worth in. But hey, if someone can say, my best friend had that videographer and I can tell you it was absolutely amazing, well, that's good news to hear. So
Yeah,
yeah, there's lots of different ways these days with social media. But do your due diligence, do your homework, and make sure that they have got good reviews. And if they don't, say to that videographer, could I please have the email of maybe two of your past couples that wouldn't have an issue with me simply emailing and saying, hey, you had an experience with us. Would you like to just tell this couple an experience that's thinking about booking with us? Because when you love someone, you're really happy to spruik to the world how good they are.
exactly.
So
That's really true.
worth a try.
I like that. And again, the same question usually always comes up. Should I feed my videographer? We answered this obviously in the photography podcast,
With
but yeah.
yes, 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 and yes. You always feed any suppliers that are working at your wedding, because what you don't realize is they could have been up at 6 o'clock in the morning on the road at the first location, like we talk about with weddings. You can
Mhm.
have brides preparation, grooms preparation, two different places, ceremony, one location, photo shoot, three locations, reception, another location. And they might have been on the road for 10 hours by the time they've even hit dinner, and they might be cranky. They might have only had a banana and an apple and a glass of water. So, absolutely, you feed your suppliers. They deserve it. They work hard and they're not
Yeah,
asking for the same food that the guests are getting. They're very happy with just what's called a service meal, which might be fish and chips or parmigiana and chips. So I don't think many videographers will say, well, we must have 8 courses like your guests are getting. Just give us
Absolutely.
some food, please, so we don't have a sugar dip and fall over and not be able to get up because we've got no energy to keep working.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, that's really true. And how much footage do you think the average videographer should supply the couple?
Look, everyone's different, but if we talk about a bit of a standard across a full wedding day, let's say they've shot for about 8 hours, which is fairly sort of standard.
Mhm.
I think that most videographers will deliver anything from maybe 5 minutes through to 10 minutes, and you can often add on extra long show reels if you want for a certain cost. But I think you can pretty well wrap up your entire wedding day in snippets on a show reel from around about 5 to 6 minutes. 6 minutes is often good because it can have two songs. Songs are
Yes.
usually about 3 minutes each.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I get couples sometimes say, can we have all of the footage from a wedding day from video? And it's just simply not possible. Like you'd have to buy a big drive. It would be in raw footage so huge. And the bride or groom wouldn't even have the access to be able to play it. And like a photographer, we might take 4 photos of the same thing, knowing that 3 are no good because someone's blinked and someone's done something to get that one golden shot.
Yeah.
Well, a videographer does the same, Sarah. They might just take 4 different close up shots of one thing to get it perfect. Why would you that they were going to throw out? So, no, it's not a good idea to ever look for all the footage from a wedding day. You've got to trust your videographer is going to give you the great stuff, and then they're going to put great stuff on the cutting room floor, so to speak. You're going to get it.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned before about when I said how much footage you should get for your wedding day. A highlight reel, I think, is amazing. I agree with you 100% there because it takes all of those special moments. And the videographer that you choose, obviously, you will like their work and you trust them because they're professional, that they're not going to miss anything. What about the ceremony and the speeches?
Look, most videographers will include all of the vows and the ceremony on a separate file. And often that's not edited, that's just them setting up their wide camera through the whole ceremony. Now, they'll take bits of that to edit in with the camera that they're roaming with, or if there's two videographers. But they'll often just take that whole ceremony, that might be 15 minutes, they do what's called a color grade and a basic master on it. And then you just get that on a separate file. And they'll usually do the same with all the speeches as well. So you just need to check with your videographer. You are getting all of that, but that should be fairly standard within a package.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good to know. And also, again, it's the piece of string information there, I think, when it comes to how long it should take to get your video back.
Look, in quiet times of the year, a videographer might get your footage back to you within 30 days because they just might not have much backup. But if a videographer is doing 2 weddings a week, it doesn't just take an hour to edit, it can be days in the edit suite. Plus, they might be doing midweek shoots as well. So, if your video takes around 12 weeks, so around 3 months, that's very reasonable to expect. And if in really busy, pressured times, it might even take a little bit longer. So I think 3 months, 12 weeks is acceptable. Anything earlier, I think, is great. And anything beyond, just try and have some patience with them that they might be working 100 hours a week round the clock. And you don't want a videographer to be sitting in their creative space doing a beautiful creative edit on your video when they're absolutely exhausted. I'd rather them take a couple of weeks and feel good about doing it and do it properly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And what about should they have or should they look for people that are just a one videographer or having a second person shoot or a third person shoot? What do you think with that?
I, I think a good experienced videographer, same with a photographer, can handle it on their own. However, once you start going up in really big guest numbers, and if you've got a huge bridal party, So, for example, let's say you've got a huge, big Lebanese wedding with 400 guests and a bridal party of 20. There's just no way in the world one videographer could ever handle that. That would be requiring 2 to 3 videographers. Now, if you're
Mhm.
planning a wedding, which I've done so many of these weddings when I was a Sydney based wedding photographer, if you're planning a huge big wedding with 400 people and all the bells and whistles, you've got the budget, trust me, because that is going to be a very expensive wedding. So if it's
Yes.
going to cost you $10,000, $20,000 for your video, you already expect that and you're already factoring that in. So yeah, it's like huge weddings. I think they know it's going to cost them a fortune for that type of stuff because everything's going to cost a fortune with that many people. But just your standard wedding up to 100 people, if it's not too over the top and the bridal party isn't more than maybe 10 people, one good videographer can handle it.
Okay, awesome. And what about backup gear?
Oh, you've got to, just like photography, you've got to have
Uh-huh.
backup gear. So whatever camera you're shooting with, you've got to have a spare one in your bag. You've got to have spare batteries, spare tripods, spare cards, spare everything, spare lenses. Like, geez, I've dropped a lens before on a wedding day. And if it's your
Mm.
favorite lens, it just is devastating if you see a lens bounce on the ground, but it's okay if you know you've got spare good quality lenses. So a good videographer will always have a backup case with spare everything. So you know they're a good videographer if they've got spare everything because it means they've got the money to do it because they've
Yes.
got the business to earn the money to do it. But someone
Yeah.
starting out, Sarah, they don't have the budget. So they
Mhm.
just don't have all that backup gear and that is deadly dangerous not to have that
Yeah.
backup gear.
No, that's a fair point. And when it comes to resolution and quality of wedding video, obviously the big thing at the moment is 4K, making sure it's 4K. Um, there's talk of 5K, and who knows how many K it will end up being in another year or two. What's your thoughts on the minimum resolution that that brides and grooms should be asking for when it comes to their video?
Most video cameras these days, particularly with the new mirrorless digital cameras, are 4K. It's a standard. But you might be dealing with a videographer that's been using the same older gear for years. And there's nothing wrong with that. If I know many photographers that won't upgrade their cameras to the mirrorless digital, which I did quite some time ago. There's nothing wrong with the older camera, and they might feel that comfortable with it
Mhm.
that they want to stick with it. So if that's happening with video, there's a chance you might not get 4K, but have a look at the quality of get them to show you samples and you might say, "Oh my god, that quality is so amazing. Who's going to tell the difference?" But most
Yeah.
videographers are in 4K these days. Are you going to watch it at home on your huge 4K screen where it might not look as good? Are you predominantly going to watch it on your phone screen, which is just so much smaller? Just have a look at the quality they are offering for the price. Think about, are you going to sit at home watching it on your massive screen? Because I'm telling you now, the average person will pretty well mostly only watch it on their phones.
No, that's all a fair point. I like that. And it's so true these days. Everybody is on their phones, they're sharing it, they're sending it on social media. So as long as that pardon me, as long as that is covered, I think people are okay.
Yeah, a lot. When it comes to technology, sometimes I don't think that the average person knows that much. And they say little knowledge is dangerous. So sometimes just knowing a bit about something doesn't actually help you. So
Yeah,
be guided by what you see and how good the quality is.
I like that. And leading on to something a little bit funny, if I could. Well, not really funny, quite upsetting, I guess. Well, stressful, I should say for you. Is I just wanted to bring up when you first started shooting, many, many moons ago, decades, crikey knows how long ago it
When I
was.
used to ride my dinosaur to weddings,
That's the one. I was wondering if you could share the story about that one time your camera failed while you were shooting an engagement party. Please elaborate.
Oh my god, that phew, I'm bringing that file back out. Gee, I really had just first started in Sydney, so I was going on Gumtree and just offering really low price shoots just to get my experience up. And so I went to do this engagement party in Sydney, and I've got my little, I think it was like a little 300D Canon, which now to me is a little toy. So there I am shooting away with my little camera. And for those of you that know about cameras, you've got these little cards and they've got holes in them that you push in. And the old ones used to have these wires that came out. And if you push the card in the wrong way or just even a tiny little bit the wrong angle, it used to bend these little wires. So I'm quickly changing my cards, this engagement party. I go like that. Card won't fit, card won't fit. Oh my God, I've bent the pins in my camera
Oh,
and
no.
I couldn't fix it. And I'm like, I just broke out in a sweat. I didn't know what to do. And I noticed there was a lady sitting at a table that had a camera just like mine. So I just went straight over and I said, listen, I told him exactly what had happened. And she said, oh, no worries. Here you go. Take my camera. And then, so I took the camera, I finished shooting. And back then I lived near the airport in Sydney. And the
Mhm.
next morning they drove to my place to pick the camera up.
Oh my gosh, that's so sweet.
They were such nice people because they left early. I stayed till the end and they're like, no problem. We'll come pick it up. Now, that had a very happy ending, Sarah. And that could have gone really badly. So from then on, I realized I have to find the money to have a second camera because I was
Yeah,
really
for
new.
sure.
I'd spent every cent I had, on this gear. So I realized, hey, if you're going to take this seriously, you just got to do it. Got to have the gear, and it never happened again. I can assure you of that ever.
I I'm sure it didn't. Well, that is such a story there, and it's a prime example as to why people need to make sure their photographer and videographer have backup gear. So, yes. Awesome. Well, I think that that will be all for today.